in university. So as we're going to go on to talk about, I kind of went down the university route into tech. So I actually worked for my dad. He ran a very small engineering company, just one or two people. But it was really interesting because I think I learned some quite harsh lessons about what it takes to work in the real world. You know, how hard you have to work to be successful as well. And I definitely think I caught the entrepreneurial bug, if you like, at that stage as well.
Excellent. And I guess, IT, all those years ago perhaps wasn't so well known, but what kind of inspired you to want to work in IT? Was, where did you get that initial interest and passion from?
Yeah, I think it's probably related to that. I think, with my dad being a kind of electrical engineer, we always had parts of electronics all scattered around the house. I was always interested in techie stuff, taking things apart. I think, I was kind of naturally brought into this space and went on the journey from there.
Were you able to put them back as well as take them apart, or did your TV remote always not work after?
Yeah, I was never that talented, unfortunately.
So that's where you got the kind of the initial interest from. And then from an education point of view, and I guess that's probably really interesting at the moment as well. So what was your background in terms of education, then how you came about through that into this space?
Yeah, so I think I took at the time probably quite a traditional path into tech. So I did kind of maths, physics, chemistry, A levels, and then went on to university and doing a computer science degree. And I think that was very typical at the time. Yep. But I think that one of the reasons why we're running the event today is just to kind of showcase how that's changing. You see some of the biggest tech companies now, they're no longer looking for people. You don't need a degree anymore to get to apply for a tech job at Google, for example. And that's only fairly recently changed. So I'm personally really supportive of diversity when it comes into how it roots into the sector and who we actually look to employ now in my current role at Sidetrade. And I think some of the best talent that we have has come through non-university routes. And that's why I was so keen to run this session today and talk a little bit about that. And I think that's what, Luke can convince you of this. And I'm sure he'll come on to do so.
He will. And I guess, organizations like Google, when they take a lead, does that make it easier for you then to mandate that type of change in your organization, or do you feel you'd get challenged otherwise if you were recruiting from a non-traditional background?
Yeah, I think it obviously makes things a lot easier when some of the big players are making this movement. But to be honest, we probably started before them, and Luke's going to talk about things like the Code Academy, which we've been running for, I think 3 or so years now. So it's not something we started last month. But yeah, it clearly makes it easier. The more momentum, the more shift you get in the market, it definitely makes it easier.
Absolutely. And, in terms of your career path, what kind of detours did it take, I suppose, before you arrived at this fantastic position that you're in now?
Well, I think, so I started off as a software engineer, moved into kind of doing freelance contracting consultancy mainly for big enterprise, I think, which was quite typical at that point. I went into actually one of the big 6 utility companies and ended up running quite a large team. So it was quite, got a lot of kind of commercial experience of large corporate at that point. But I think the big detour came for me at that point, really. I then persuaded a good friend of mine at the time that it was a good opportunity. There was a big opportunity in the kind of SaaS software space in AI. Right. And a few years later, with a lot of effort, we did get Bright Target off the ground, got some traction, and obviously then in 2017, lucky enough to get Bright Target acquired by Sidetrade at the time. So it was definitely a detour to become kind of an entrepreneur, to try and launch a business from what was a very, if you like, steady corporate job that most people probably would have stuck with for the rest of their life. So it was a big gamble, but it was an exciting one at the same time, and learned a hell of a lot.
Absolutely. Seems as well that in the technology space in particular, it does seem to attract a certain type of individual, a certain type of personality. And I think as well, when you look at the large tech companies that exist now, they all had that element of risk taking. For many of them, it doesn't always pay off, but clearly it's paid off for you. It's certainly allowed you to build that nice loft extension as well to work from home during lockdown.
Yeah, you like that, do you?
Very nice. Excellent. And I suppose in terms of CTO, you come across as very personable, still very young and dynamic. That's what they've told me to say anyway. But
That was written down.
It was written down. But what type of CTO are you, Mark? How do you kind of come across? How do you like to be kind of your team?
Yeah, I think for me, it's probably very similar to the last question in terms of, I think I'd probably class myself as quite an entrepreneurial one, someone that's looking to try and drive innovation from the team. Because I think, when you look at, I think there's lots of different styles, depending on if you went into an organization, you could see very different styles, depending on the person, depending on the company. And I think some companies are very, restrictive around how entrepreneurial you can be.
Understood.
But I think that is a key thing for me, that entrepreneurial spirit. So looking to try and drive change quicker, try and stay ahead of your competitor.
Absolutely.
I think that's a real big thing for me, and that's what personally I look to try and drive. Try and work quickly. I mean, personally, I'd say I'm very sort of data centric, very data driven, analytical, and that's the kind of thing that personally, from my background, what I like and how I come across, I guess.
Well, I think certainly the entrepreneurial one is borne out by the fact, obviously, you started your own company, you sold, and also you practice what you preach in terms of agile and allowing people to get on and do their own things. And Luke will be able to talk about that in a moment as well. And for those aspiring technical folks out there, in terms of technical experience and skills, what does a Sidetrade or a typical Sidetrade developer look like, and what are some of the qualities that you're looking for when you make that a hire, Mark?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the biggest things that I personally look for are the kind of drive element. So that real deep desire to learn. So it's not so much the pure technical skills, or pure experience that I look for personally. I think some of the best people that we hire, and typically, to be honest, it's one of the hardest things to spot in an interview process or when we're trying to find people, but it's that real deep desire to learn and get better. That's the kind of thing we look for. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do hire some real experts with years and years of real technical deep expertise, so we do that. But I think for youngsters who are looking to get into tech, it's not about a specific skill set. It's about that drive and that I want to go to bed. If I need to learn something, I'm going to go and buy a textbook, and I'm happy to sleep on the textbook under my pillow, that kind of thing, and really just want to absorb knowledge and get better and better. So it's more attitude, I think, for me, that I look for.
And particularly in the tech space itself, because even since when you started out, the technologies have just changed so massively, particularly with the advent of cloud and all the different types of languages that are out there and machine learning and algorithms. So I imagine that desire to learn and keep learning, it has to be really foremost in that list of qualities that that they keep wanting to remain current and understand what the changes are, and then being able to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, if you look at the typical tech stack 5 years ago, it's very different from the typical tech stack today.
Absolutely.
So you want a team that are going to be able to go down the path. They're going to be able to adapt. They're going to be able to be agile, and they're going to have fun while they're doing it as well, to be fair.
Absolutely. And talking about fun, we're not asking you to show holiday pics, don't worry. But how do you build a kind of a team culture? How do you create that collaboration, that kind of fun culture within Sidetrade? And what's the culture of the research and development team like there that you have as well?
Yes, I think it sounds pretty obvious, but culture definitely starts and ends with the people that you employ. So I think it's all well and good me trying to drive a culture, but actually culture comes every day from every person in your team. So I think the things you can do as like a leader, in my opinion, to focus on that innovation piece. So I think whether you're trying to encourage people to work on with the very latest tech or to solve problems that no one's ever solved before. These are kind of things that a lot of people, drives them to get out of bed in the morning, drives them to want to be better, and drives them to be positive, and that rubs off on all the other people that you have in your team and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's really important to say there is a balance. You don't want everyone in your team to be like super creative, coming up with ideas. You probably won't deliver a great deal if that's the case. You need to find this balance of creative with the doers, with the best teams, those with a mix of different people, different skills, different experiences. So that's the kind of thing we really want to encourage. We're not looking for a one size fits all. We're looking for a whole mix of different people, different backgrounds, different skills and experiences. And if you can get them all together with a single vision and a single drive, that's the biggest thing for me.
Excellent. And just on that subject, actually, Mark, and I think it's become much more apparent now, particularly with all the lockdown and restrictions and offices and stuff. People thinking about joining Sidetrade, they may be concerned that there's a lot of working from home maybe, or not necessarily going to be able to collaborate face to face. So how are you kind of managing that at the moment? Because I can imagine the sorts of people you employ as well, it's to try and get things moving, you need sometimes you need to get together and have the huddle. So how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty tough, to be honest. I think everyone's been on a journey over the last sort of 6 to 9 months, with lots of highs and lows amongst it. I think we adapt the way we're set up as an organisation. We're to work very remotely anyway, so we work in small teams that are generally cross-region anyway. So we have a lot of people in Europe working everywhere, working in France and UK, working together. So even before lockdown, we were set up in a good way to deal with it. So we were lucky in that respect. But I think some of the things we've tried to do to keep the positivity and this kind of culture thing, we probably 2 weeks ago now, we ran a big virtual hackathon event across all of the R&D team and wider actually, which went down really well. So 2 days focused on innovative topics where we step away from the roadmap, all that kind of stuff. So examples like that, some of the key things that we're doing.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for that, Mark. And I guess the other question is around your advice for young people looking into tech, or even indeed old people like me. But what would your advice be?
Sorry, son, I'll say that again. You just dropped out on it.
Yeah, sorry. What would your advice be to young people or old people looking to get into tech?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think Luke's probably better to give this kind of advice, so I think he'll probably do a better job. But I would say it doesn't matter what your background is. Also, it doesn't matter if you're young or old. I think there's always an opportunity to get into tech. I've seen with my own eyes the last few years that people with the right attitude can cross-train into tech within a matter of months. It is 100% possible, and it's never too late, or it's never too early, probably either, to be totally honest.
Understood. Thanks for that. Just before we hand across to Luke as well, I just wondered if you had any interesting or inspiring lessons that you picked up from tech leaders and indeed partner alliances leaders like myself, and like to leave us on a positive note.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest lesson is a simple one that I've learned from whether it's entrepreneurs or mentors. I think like being successful, whatever your definition of success is, I think it is 99% effort. The most successful people I see, they're the ones that put in all the hours. They're the ones that really push it as far as possible. And it does depend on what your definition of success is, to be fair, as to how you classify this. But in terms of looking at people that have grown companies, that have got very senior jobs, that that you could classify as a certain element of success, I think a lot of them have worked hard.
I agree.
And I think people need to realise the work that's gone in to get to that point.
Yeah, like there's that saying, behind every overnight success story, there's 20 years of hard work. And I think sometimes 100%. people only see the that stuff there. I just want to take a quick pause actually while Luke warms up. just from one of the guests asked the question. I think it's a bit more of an observation, really, but we see if we can answer it as well. It's in the chat, but it basically says that tech job adverts ask for so many things in the job description. It seems impossible to know all the things every employer is asking for with random niche, etc. I wish they would just ask for someone with general good programming skills, e.g. Java, and the ability to learn. A little bit like you were saying, actually. What do you think about that? And then he's just given an example as well, saying an example advert, entry-level position, Node.js, Java, AWS, Lambda, Cloud, J2E, all that kind of stuff. Whereas another company will ask something completely different. So is there a case there maybe that, you know, the employers are being too specific, and what's our policy on that?
Yeah, so I think it's very typical for a job advert to have the skills that the company, you know, the skills and the tech stack that the company has.
Right.
But every one of our senior hiring managers, and Luke will, I'm sure, align with this, is when we're hiring, especially more junior positions, it is not a critical thing for us. So even if we put, you know, it would be great if you have these skills. That is not what we're going to assess you for when you come in for an interview. We're going to assess that ability to learn, that drive, that desire, the attitude, and general, like you say, general kind of programming ability. That's the kind of thing we're going to assess. So for me, on at a junior level, that should never be like a critical requirement for hiring.
Well said.
It's not for me to judge for other companies, but that would be our policy, especially on junior roles.
Excellent, fantastic. Well, Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate answering those questions and all the insights you provided. It's been really nice chatting to you. Stay on the line as well, please, while we're going to have Luke now introduce himself. So Luke's the lead application engineer at Sidetrade. So Luke, welcome to the conversation. So from your perspective, perhaps you could do a similar introduction to that of Mark, perhaps, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, currently work with Sidetrade with Mark. I was one of the first engineers he recruited at Bright Target, so I came through the acquisition as well. So it's been a pretty cool ride so far. Currently on the technical side, handling quite a lot of the engineering in terms of architecting, designing and implementing, innovation, and obviously as well sort of helping to build the team, make sure we align with the culture, getting young talent in, stuff like that. So staying innovative. So yeah, that's pretty much about me at the moment.
Fantastic. And what was your first job?
So yeah, slightly different route. So Microsoft back in when I was 16 started the apprentice program. It was actually called the Get On scheme. I think they've just relaunched it again this week actually.
Oh, excellent.
It's called a Get On scheme. So I started my first apprenticeship at 16, a week after my last GCSE exam. So I went on holiday for a week, got a bit of sun, and then that was it. Back into full-time employment. So that was in software engineering. So
straight in. So really, you didn't have a chance to do anything else, really, because the next question is, you know, did you always want to work in IT? And I guess that age to go straight into it, I guess there would have been a passion then for that, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think like if I wasn't sort of outside playing football with the football team or with my friends, I was inside in front of a computer. I used to like go and build or host a game myself. It had like 50 people on it. I'd go and boot that up on my computer, and people would join the server every night and stuff like that. So that sort of led me to getting involved in programming. I think had a bit of a passion from there.
Okay. And so what happened to the professional football career? Did that have to take a bit of a sideline?
Wasn't good enough.
One out?
Yeah, I wasn't good enough, to be honest. So
but you found your passion at the Sidetrade, though, clearly.
Yeah, in fact that's it. So got into software
player manager. You're a player manager at Sidetrade.
Yeah, in fact I became a manager of like a young team instead. So
there we go. A bit like Mark.
Yeah.
Manager of a young team. And you know, we heard about Mark's education. So what was your kind of your education you know, prior? You mentioned that you did you know, GCSEs, but you know, you didn't take Mark's route. So maybe just words on that.
Yeah, I essentially just, so in terms of GCSEs, they just brought out an IT diploma, it was called at the time.
Right.
So I opted for that, and similar, I guess, in terms of choices with the sciences and stuff like that. But yeah, and I immediately knew that I didn't want to sort of step out. I didn't want to wait 3 to 4 years to get into the industry. I wanted to get straight stuck in, get immersed and start programming. I didn't want to have like that sort of long career, that long wait. So I was trying to figure out ways to do that. Luckily enough for me, my mum found the Microsoft scheme for me.
Your mum found it?
Yeah, my mum found it for me.
You're too busy playing football or gaming, were you?
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
And, you know, in terms of your career path, did you take any detours? I mean, or, you know, was it just a fairly rapid rise?
Yeah, I think in terms of a typical career path in software engineering up to now, I'd say it's very typical. The bit that I'd say is a detour is just how like the rapid progression in terms of, so in my previous company I was tech leading at around 20, so that took around 4 years. I think after post university, the average sort of time to get into that position would be like 3 to 8 years after university.
Right.
So being able to tech lead a team of like 10 engineers, some of them are contracting and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the main reason for it is because when you're sort of that age at 16, you're so spongy in terms of like taking in knowledge, stuff like this. So yeah, I think that's probably helped to the progression in that sense.
Understood. Excellent. And, you know, the Code Academy has been a real success, and I think it's a real differentiator at Sidetrade as well. And it's something that you were very much behind. Maybe you can just tell us where that idea came from, who you stole it from. I'm sorry, where you came up with this great idea. Beg your pardon.
Exactly. So it really started to come in when I started getting involved in the hiring process at my previous company. So as I was tech leading and we needed to start hiring engineers to scale the team, it was pretty apparent that you start thinking about the business aspect. So like when you recruit somebody, it's how much it costs to recruit somebody, your investment from a time perspective. So I think that a lot of people think about the salary expectations and like recruitment costs and stuff like that. But what people don't take into account is like the amount it costs like a senior to train a junior. So if you've got somebody on a senior salary, that cut of time that they're taking, they're not delivering something for your customers. Instead, they're training somebody. So I think mainly it was on like the return on investment. So based on an apprenticeship route that I did, you're looking 6 to 12 months for return on investment. You need high input from seniors to train them. If you get a grad or postgrad, sometimes you can find at the time that it can be a little bit of a gamble initially.
Right.
And again, you're probably looking at a similar time frame as I've never had sort of that first entry level sort of software engineering job. And recruitment agents typically target and headhunt people after a year of coming out of university. So I saw that Hack Reactor in the US, they were a startup around the same time. So software boot camps were becoming quite big in the US. So it seemed like quite a good middle ground in terms of not being 12 months of an apprenticeship and not like taking the risk with a grad and the salary. So it's a rapid sort of boot camp, immersive training mechanism. What's
the basic premise of Sidetrade's Code Academy? Maybe just spend just a couple of minutes on what the process is, because I've seen it, and I think it's really interesting. I think it's a great way of doing stuff. So maybe just talk people through the process very briefly, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So I guess the main premise is around rapid software engineering and like getting people into that sort of environment straight away. We do open up the application process. Anybody can apply from any walk in life. So you could be a career changer, you could be somebody who's 16, 17 before uni, university dropout. If you want to drop out, you think university after a year is not for you. So any walk of life really. and on the day we'll do team-based assessment, which is just around sort of the culture and team building, how you interact with people.
Excellent.
And from there, what we do is we offer people free software training. So the idea is of the free software training is it's taking all of our current practices within Sidetrade and turning that into some content and being our engineers spending time with people to get them from zero to hero in as quick as we can.
Brilliant.
And then it culminates in a demo day right at the end where people can demo what they've built.
Wow.
To software, to the comex, or like people like Mark and Fred came over, and Fred DuPont and people like this. So
Excellent.
it's pretty powerful, and the progression people make is really good.
So not only are they getting skills in actual coding, working in a work environment, but they're also then presenting, meeting senior members of the Sidetrade leadership team, and having their ideas heard as well. So whilst they may not be successful potentially with Sidetrade, but it puts them in good stead for future engagements as well. So it's a real win-win for both organisations.
Yeah, definitely.
And in terms of the successes of Code Academy, perhaps you want to spend a few minutes just maybe talking about what the key ones have been.
Yeah, so I think that the key thing is that for me, the fact that we've recruited people. So just even recruiting one person, I deem it as success. But I think from my perspective, the fact we've changed the Code Academy process itself has like sort of changed 8 people's lives and careers is amazing for them and amazing for me. Most of the employees didn't really have the current Sidetrade Academy grads. As I said, there's 8 of them. They didn't really have a plotted career path at the time. So for them to go and now have this career path in tech is huge for them. I think as well, like the diversity, all the varying backgrounds and stuff like this. So like I think it's a quarter of the recruits are female. There's a big thing on females into tech at the moment, which I think is great, and we need to keep pushing that. And yeah, having someone from a career changer as well. I didn't think we'd ever have that element, even though it's open. So he was a guy 30, he did a sports science degree, completely non-related to tech for 8 years. And then he's now working as a software engineer with us, which is great.
Excellent. Brilliant. So you get a nice sports massage in the afternoons as well. Excellent. And finally, what's your advice to any aspiring technical looking to make their way?
So I think that the key thing is, well, I think I'd summarize it in one word in terms of if anybody advised me or asked me, which would be immersion. I think I've used that word a couple of times. So the immersion aspects is in the deep end, like learn to love the world of tech. There's so much stuff out there to go and find and learn. Constantly read, constantly do training courses, look at the latest tech, look at what other people are doing in the industry, and don't be scared to just try and like then impose stuff. I think that's sort of, if I was saying to like somebody who was sort of junior, mid, or wanted to take that next step, take your immersion that you do outside of your normal 9 to 5 into your company, bring that sort of innovation, because if you operate at the level that you want to aspire to be, you'll normally be recognized for that, and that's where you sort of take your next career step in tech.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thanks, Luke. Such wise advice from such young shoulders. I'm very impressed. Fantastic. Thank you very much. There's been a quick question asked actually. Is there a website for the Academy to see more info on the start dates and sign-ups? Is that something we publicize on the sidetrade.com website, or is there a specific place they need to go?
Yeah, no, we'll look to launch it again early next year, unfortunately. So there's nothing going to be in the next few months, but we will get something published early next year.
All right. Thanks very much for that. And just for those people who are listening in, there's a chat on the right-hand side. You can just pop your question in there, and I can ask it to the members of the panel here at the moment if you've got any questions. Otherwise, we're just going to wrap up. Doesn't have to be Sidetrade related.
Yeah.
I think that's it really, guys. So really what I'd like to do is just say, thanks again very much to Mark and Luke for joining us today and for explaining to us so eloquently how they came about into the world of tech and how they're progressing. I think we'd all agree that Sidetrade seems to be a really amazing place to work and develop skills. I think it's very open to all sorts of people, all sorts of backgrounds, which I think's really very good, particularly from a diversity point of view. And I think also, as you can see, we will start the recruitment process again. We do actually have open headcount at the moment as well. Do feel free to check out the careers website that we've just posted in the chat too. And also, if you know of any other candidates you think might be suitable for Sidetrade or career at Sidetrade, please do send them to us. If you send them to me, I'll split the referral fee with you as well. So that's it. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining us today, and wish you all rest good of the week.
Thanks, Al. Thanks.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.